Hello everyone, welcome back to our topic of industry engineering and management. So this video will be discussing about the managerial principles, functions of management and the basic concepts of management which have been utilized in different organizations. At first, we'll be discussing into the concepts of unit 1 which are primarily focus on the various functions of management inclusive of the Microsoft theory X and theory Y which are the various which form the basic of the management principles. Next one, we'll be seeing about the Maslow's hierarchy needs, which is applicable to every human and every individual working in an organization. As indicated, it can be in the manufacturing sector or a service sector. The next topic will be McKinsey's awareness framework, which primarily focus on the motivational theories and the basic principles which drive the employees towards working towards the organization objective. And the next one is your organization structure. We look up to different organization structures. The last one, we'll see about what productivity is about, how different organizations are looking up to improving the productivity, and what is the basic parameter of measuring productivity. You could see here almost all the topics which we have discussed until now, they are qualitative in terms. But to to make it in a more easier way and to make it get a beneficial out of it, every qualitative aspect has to be quantified. To be very simple, you have to quantify the quality. So that is very key for an industrial engineer who is working in an industry. Unless and until that the value is quantified refers to in terms of numbers, you can never ever improve that, you can never ever imply that the quality is maintained. So all these measurement of productivity is a qualitative factor, but measurement will indicate the different parameters and the methods through which you can measure it. At the last, we'll see about the various factors which affect the productivity. Right, before we start up, we wanted to know what management is about. It is basically an art and basically a science. That is the first question which everyone will come across. But to be more precise, it is a combination of both, because an art is something which comes naturally, which is based on a skill, whereas the science is something which has to be studied, and based on the concept you have to apply it to a case to case basis. So when you speak about management, it is a combination of both art and science, where you use your skill as well as your intellectual thoughts to apply it to scenarios based upon the sciences and data which have been given or which have been submitted. So management is basically the process of designing and maintaining an environment in which individuals they work together in groups and they work efficiently to accomplish the selected aims. So this aims has to be in line with the objectives and the vision and mission of the institute or the organization. So to perform the managerial functions, we need to have accurate and factual information. So who will be providing this accurate and factual information? As I said, factual information has to be in terms of numbers. You have to quantify the data, or else it will be completely a qualitative work. So office is something which provides you this factual information, where all the managerial functions, inclusive of all the clerical works, will be carried over. So how do they work? They work by fixing up certain goals which are in line with the objective and the goals of the organization. So to be more precise, we call that to be a SMART goals. So a goal has to be specific, it has to be measurable in terms of numbers, and it has to be agreed upon, and it has to be realistic. It should not be something which is unimaginable. It should not be something which cannot be obtained. It has to be realistic, and more importantly, it has to be timely, because a timely incorporation of any particular goal or timely incorporation of any work will always assist in improving the productivity and helps in overall growth of the organization. Now we look up to the various functions of management. There are five primary functions of management. We call them to be postcode. This term has been coined by Mr. Luther Gulick, who coined a word called postcode, taking into account all the first letters of the seven functions. But why it is called as five primary functions? It is because the controlling function, which is the last function of management, it comprises of coordinating, reporting, and budgeting. These three process also comes under controlling, and hence why he has termed the word of POSCO, which takes the initials of all the seven functions. As seen in the diagram, you could see that all the five functions of the management they are interrelated, which means they depend on each other, and you have to optimize it and you have to effectively organize them to make sure that the organizational objective is achieved without any flaws. In a nutshell, we have to see about the basic five functions of management. So who was the first one who termed this? Mr. Henry Fayol, as we have seen in the previous videos, Henry Fayol is called as the father of Industrial Revolution. In his book of Administration Industrial Ed, he has defined these 5 functions of management to be crucial for any organization. So it is a theory of business administration. It comprises of planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. So what does planning refers to? It forms the first phase of your management function. So according to Foyle, he is very specific that it is the hardest of the 5 functions. Why so? It is because the managers must plan for the future and develop appropriate strategies to meet the goals. How do you plan it? You get your benchmarking data. You get to know what the market is demanding, how far the others are performing, how far your product is performing. All those data has to be taken into account. Only then you'll be able to plan what is to be done for the future. So once the planning is done, then you have to organize all the physical as well as the human resources. It includes your financial resources as well. So the process of assembling them is called as organizing. Start from your line managers, it starts to your supervisors, then it moves on to your labors. So once the planning and organizing is done, you have to move to the next phase of function, which is your commanding. So this has to be very crucial. It is because the communication has to be very clear. We normally speak about a term called bullwhip effect, which usually say that due to miscommunication, the data are misinterpreted. So a successful manager is one who communicate very clearly and honestly, and they act in a way that it reflects the company values. So for commanding, it usually starts with top to bottom approach. The information as received by the management has to be commanded, it has to be disseminated to the subordinates in a more clear way or in a more way which they are understandable. So the next phase of management is your coordinating phase, which aims to create a good harmony between the various activities. Why it is very important? It is because without a proper coordination, the entire outcome will be failing. Now, to quote an example, we usually go to a multi-specialty hospital, which is hospital is a service sector here. So we go to a multi-specialty hospital, but you could see that a scanning or an X-ray department is usually only one inside the hospital. They will be the one who will be coordinating with every other disciplines of the hospital, be it a cardiologist, be it a neurologist, be it a pulmonologist, whoever is referring the patients to there, they are the one who have to coordinate them, and they have to make sure that the coordination is done properly and the output is properly achieved. Because with poor coordination, it may lead to an customer dissatisfaction. So here customer dissatisfaction in a service sector will lead to losing of customers, whereas in a manufacturing sector, the customer dissatisfaction will lead to losing of your product as well as your reputation. The final phase of your management is controlling, where you have to have a proper monitoring about what are the progress that are being done and whether the progress is in line with the objectives which have been set. And if you find any deviations, that is why we coin the term of NCR, which is non-conformity to the requirement. If there is any deviation to the required conformities, then it has to be immediately looked upon, and we have to find a feedback loop. We have to find a proper preventive method to eliminate them. Now we'll see about the 2 important theories which are put forth by Mr. McGregor. So what do the theory generally says about? It is like two sides of the coin. One side, it is the theory X, which is completely a negative aspect, whereas the theory Y, it is completely full of positive. It is up to the managers, and it is completely dependent upon the managers as well as the top level people to focus predominantly on theory Y. What it usually says is about there are two aspects of a human behavior. To be more precise, there are two different views of individuals. One which is completely negative, which is denoted by the theory X, and the other one is completely positive, which is to be denoted theory Y. So what do this theory X and theory Y suggest? As far as the planning is concerned, if your superior is setting the objectives for the subordinates without any proper communication written back to them, which means that without any proper feedback from their subordinates, then you call them to be theory X. It is because the superior is not concerned about what is happening in the line. He is not knowing about what is the difficulties faced by the subordinates. He is just blindly setting the objectives for the subordinates. Whereas the few alternatives are explored. In theory Y, many alternatives are explored. So if a manager wants to follow a theory Y, he has to completely follow this concept of planning, where the supervisor and the subordinates, they jointly set the objectives. Also, they look for exploring different alternatives which will find easier way of achieving it. When you come to directing, a person who is following theory Y will have a high commitment to the objectives, whereas a person who is following a theory X or an autocratic leadership, you basically call them to be an autocrat leader, is completely based on authority. He doesn't look up to the teamwork. He doesn't encourage the teamwork inside the organization. So it is a purely an autocrat kind of leadership which needs to be completely avoided. And coming to the third phase, it is appraising and controlling, where there is high trust in appraisal for theory Y, and based on the past forward looking and problem solving techniques. Internal control is based on self control, whereas in theory X, the focus is on the past and fault finding. A manager who is very specific about finding fault and focusing on the past will never ever able to move forward to his objective. He will just get stuck up with what is happening right now, and he will continue to find fault among the subordinates, which will never going to help the organization in moving forward. So the primary difference between theory X and theory Y, as said earlier, a theory Y is full of positive words and is full of positive, where managers will predominantly look up for a collaborative work. Probably they will look up to a more team-oriented approach, whereas a theory X, it will be a one-point communication and the leadership will be completely autocratic. The next topic we'll see today is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Most of you would have seen this in your somehow or the other in most of your moral science books and other things, but it is much more to that. Basically, it starts with the bottom of the pyramid, which is the physiological needs for any person. We usually say the three needs: food, shelter, and dress. So this forms the basic of your physiological needs. Any person who is working in an organization, he will look up to find these things to be satisfied. If this physiological needs is not satisfied, he will definitely move out of the organization. The other basic need includes your safety needs. He needs to have a good mindset that his job is secured and he is completely safe within the organization. The next set of needs is your physiological needs or your psychological needs, which completely depends on person to person. And that is where your theory X and theory Y comes into play, because in an organization, there will be people on both the sides. There will be people who will be completely negative and there will be people who will be completely positive. So one has to find a sense of belongingness inside the organization. They have to create a good formal relationship with your subordinates as well as your friends, as well as you have to have the prestige and feeling of accomplishment when you do a work. So how does this can be achieved? The managers can have to predominantly focus on encouraging them. More importantly, they have to focus on appreciating their subordinates whenever they achieve even a small accomplishment. The topmost need is your self-fulfillment needs, where one feels completely satisfied when his full potential is utilized and he is creating different activities which are helping the organization in moving towards their objective. A detailed description of what the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is given. As you could say that the social needs, when a person feels that he is safe, then your social needs for love and belongingness come into play. So once we are safe and secure, then our primal desires of status and self-esteem come into play. So we will never ever feel of a part of the group, but we'll always be respected and we'll always be admired by the subordinates. To finish off this, the last slide, I am putting up the updated version, probably for the current generation people who are primarily focusing on digital needs. So what contributes to their physiological needs? It's their mobile phones, their tablets, all your electronic gadgets, they contribute to the physiological needs. So when it comes to safety, they are more specific about data security. They don't want their data to be breached. They want their privacy to be maintained. And once these two needs are satisfied, they look up for their belongingness, where they have your different social platform where you can mingle with people, you can interact with them, which helps them to feel that they are a part of the group. And once these three are achieved, then they look up for their esteem needs, where you have your Twitters, your Instagrams, where you can post and you can get the information. So once all these are achieved, you have your self actualization needs, and the best example could be your LinkedIn, where you can post all your achievements and through which you'll be able to ensure that you are being noticed by the other people. So this gives them a sense of feeling that their potential is fully utilized, and moreover they have been able to achieve their achieve their needs, and they will be able much more satisfied and they'll be much more happier over that. So with this, we'll be finishing up this video. In the next video, we'll be seeing about the remaining part of Unit 1, which majorly deals with organization structures and your productivity techniques. Thank you.